Hello, my name is Tom Bovey. I'm the ProjectWise Administrator for Colorado Department of Transportation. And this training today is to give you an overview of how Adobe Sign is used. Adobe Sign is one of the preeminent e-signature applications used in the world today. At CDOT, we typically use it for a number of different types of documents, but in specific fashion, we use it for record sets. So this training today will give you an overview of how Adobe Sign works, and in particular, how you would use it to seal a record set. So what you're looking at on screen now is the basic user interface. When you log into Adobe Sign, this is what you see. Notice at the top you have account, which you won't see on your end because you're not an account administrator. You will see reports, manage, send, and home. And over on the right is some detail depending on which document you have selected that it shows. So if you look at, let's just cruise through these for a minute. I want to give you an idea of what the user interface looks like and then tell you where you'll be spending your time. And then we'll launch right into a simple application and the signing of what Adobe Sign terms as an agreement. We refer to the same thing as a document within CDOT. So the word agreement and document could be synonymous for today's training. If you hit the home button, you won't spend much time here. It has some relatively nice graphics that are automatically done based on the analytics that the system captures as you sign things, send them out, and they get returned. And if we just take a quick look, you don't need to remember or write any of this down, but I've got a pre-configured report just to show you the types of things that the system keeps track of. If you look from the time we started using Adobe Sign, which I believe was about the 1st of July of 2018, these are the documents that we've sent. A lot of it was done in training, and you can look at the different time frames of all the stuff that occurs as a result of using Adobe Sign. And if you look right here, it's pretty small. Maybe I'll make it a little bit larger. Okay. Notice that the groups that are using Adobe Sign at the most, in fact, are the survey and engineering groups. There's the Region 5 engineering bar, and there's Region 4 survey, Region 3 engineering and traffic. So you can tell there's groups within CDOT that are using the application the most at the moment. So this is something you need to remember. Other than the charts are here that can be configured to show you, what's going on with the documents that you're signing. So that's the home page. That was the reports page. If you look at manage, that isn't where you land, but manage basically has, let me make this a little smaller. Manage is the view where you do just that. There's an accounting of everything that's done, just like it says, any documents waiting for you to sign, those that are out for signature, how many have been signed. And you'll notice there's 17 that have been signed. Those are all documents that I've sent out that have been executed for various things. If you look under templates, we'll get into that with record sets. Under library templates, there's 19 of those. And the templates, as you might guess, are used for automating an awful lot of the mundane tasks that you would have to do over and over and over again without the template. For instance, the templates place what we call a tool. The seal is a tool, a date's a tool, text box is a tool, so there's various types of tools. But what the templates do is automate the placement of those for signatures or seals, and it automates things like the alignment of the text, the color of the text, all of that kind of stuff is done automatically. And you can tell by looking at some of these that some of them have to do with Transportation Commission records like these that the chief engineer signs. And then a little further down, there's all types of templates designed for the record sets. We'll get into those later. So again, this is the managed environment. You won't really spend much time here. This is where the results of your work are recorded. So it's a place I go a lot, but it isn't a place where you do your work. 95% of your time is going to be sent in one place, right here in the send environment. So we're going to go ahead and go there. And this is a two-step process to send a document. You've got this first phase here where you basically enter email addresses in the order that you want people to sign or seal a document. And the order that is specified here is the order in which you assign where they sign or where they seal. Under agreement name, notice it's got some default text. That's because that text there is designed for a record set, but there's other templates that can be made available so you don't have to retype it. Like a general document template changes the text to please review and e-sign the following document. This is all part of an automated email that you're setting up. And like it says, this is where you drop the files. This is the name of the agreement or the document and other parts that I'll show you. One of the things that's really effective about Adobe Sign is the fact that it has reminders that you can set for any document you send out. You can make it every day. You can pick any of these every week. You can make a real pest out of yourself, but it does get the document at the top of someone's email list so they can't forget it or lose it in a big email stream. But this is the first part. So we're going to go ahead and do that with a very simple document. And Steve Saman of Adobe's online with us, and he's going to be the recipient of this document, or signer, if you will. He also will be a signer or recipient to seal a record set, so you can see how that works. And one of the things that works really well is a keystroke combination that you'll probably want to remember, which is the Windows key, picture of a window in the lower left part of your keyboard. If you hold that down and hit the right arrow key, it makes that window half screen. And because we like to drag and drop documents, it's very handy. And on the left over here are various documents that we're going to use today. Most of the ones that end in demo we're going to use. So the reason you want to know that keystroke combination, the Windows key and the right or left arrow, is so that you can easily transfer a document by dragging and dropping it without having, if you don't have two screens. If you've got two screens, you don't need to do that. So let's take a very simple file. Let's take, let's see, where is it? Not that one, that one. Here it is. We're going to drag that. It's a simple one-page document. Drop it here. You can also browse to the file, but most people would much rather drag and drop. So now we've got a file. It doesn't have to be a PDF. If it's an Excel file, a Word document, or whatever it is, as part of the transition or transmission process to the cloud, it will convert the document from its native format, if it's an Excel file or Word document, into a PDF. In this case, it already is. So I've got a default name here, which was automatically put there when I dragged the file in there, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I just want to change that to, say, Amazon receipt. So I'm doing this so you can see it can be changed. So now we have a little better name than the file name that was dragged in there. The basic template is fine. Please review and sign the following document. Well, there isn't one. So the easiest thing to do is just to copy that, Control C, and then paste it in here. So it's part of the email that Steve is going to get. It's going to say, please review and e-sign the following document, Amazon receipt. So now we need to sign, well, who's going to sign this? Well, I'm going to sign it first. So my email goes in here first. That's me right there. And then the next email is Steve. Oops, sorry, wrong one. Get to make mistakes too. I had your email in there, Steve. I'll have to go get it again.
SSAM at Adobe?
Yeah, I think I just easily copy it. There you are. Fingers tend to let me down. So we'll do that. Okay, now we can, and by the way, it's highly recommended that you paste names, emails rather, in here. And the reason is you'll find out the hard way if you set up an email without cutting and pasting and you get part of it wrong. Once you send that document and it's been signed by the first person, you can't change it. So if you've got a wrong email in there, it means you're doing all the work over again. So a good recommendation is to always cut and paste email addresses in there, unless you can partially type it like mine did, and it shows up and you can select it. So now we've got two recipients. I'm first, Steve second. Here's the name of the document, the email message. There's the file. We're going to set a reminder, although Steve doesn't need one. And we're actually ready to begin the process of saying, where do these people sign? So always leave this check marked now by default. Just don't uncheck it. Hit next, and the basic agreement then transfers to the cloud, and you end up in what's known as the authoring environment, which is where you assign which tools to which people and where you want them to sign, or date fields. This is usually pretty quick. Here we go. It's on the way to the cloud now. So if this were an Excel file, this is the process where it would be converting it to a PDF. Okay, so before we do anything here, this is the second part, the authoring environment. I want to show you a few things. Here's the basic document. And Adobe Sign appears to be set up basically for 8.5 by 11 documents, which is handy because if you make it larger by hitting this plus sign here, it nicely fills up the screen. However, if you're using a record set, which we'll do later, you'll find out that this black bar down here is really kind of in the way. You can make it go away. You don't need to with an 8.5 by 11 document. You can make it go away by just hitting this X, and then it will come back as you hover around the slider bar, just like that. So it's not completely gone. I like to make the document a little bit larger so that you can make for accurate placement, because we're going to place where the signature fields go now. So I'm just going to move down to where they go. All right. So that was a receipt for a flash drive. That's a real receipt that we used. But now we need to have some signatures in there, signature fields and dates. And notice over here on the right where it says recipients, these are the signers. So why is this name first? Well, that name's first because mine was first in the email list. And if you'll look down here, the second one is Steve from Adobe, because he was the second email address that was added. And that's true if you add 10 emails. It's first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So the system is asking, where do you want Tom Bovey to sign or seal, or whatever you want him to do? Notice it's color-coded. So over here, we need a date, and we need a signature from this person, Tom Bovey, who's labeled as pink. And these are all visual cues to help you remember assigning the right task to the right person, because you don't want to have the correct person sign in the wrong place. So if I look under signature, we got signature fields, and we're only going to look basically at two different fields, signature fields and signer information fields. Under signer information fields, there's a date. If I grab that and pull it over here and line it up, it usually will autofill and move over to about here automatically so that you don't have to do what I'm doing now, which is stretching the box. So there's a date. Notice the pink here matches the pink here. That means this date field is associated with this recipient, Tom Bovey. That's what you want. You don't want a different colored field here for me. So now we need a signature. So we'll close the signature information field, open up signature fields here, and grab a signature. Notice there's digital signatures, initial, signature blocks. There's all kinds of things here. Because this is a closed process and the document cannot be edited once it's sent and signed by the first signature or first recipient, it's totally secure. Normally, in an unsecure environment, we would require as a department a digital signature. But in this case, we can prove who this is, even if it's a signature that was simply scripted, copied on a Xerox machine and used here, because the audit trail that we'll speak of in a little bit actually shows you the machine IP that was used to put this image or signature there, the date, the time, email address, you name it, it's all there. So I'm just going to grab this signature field over for me, put it over here, and I'll make it a little larger. And now this doesn't match, so I'm going to move it up and move this down. Okay, so I'm done. But now we need to have a place for Steve to sign. So I'm going to go back over here to where the recipients are and select Steve. Notice what just happened. For me, this got grayed out. That's because we're on a different recipient, a different signer. We're on Steve in this case. So again, same thing. We need a date field first, which is under signature information fields here. And we'll grab the date, put it right here. And we're going to get a signature from the signature fields. Drag it over, kind of line it up. Notice on the left of these fields is a little vertical bar. You can barely see it right here. That's for lining images up or lining the tools up. They kind of snap to almost like a grid. Okay, again, notice the kind of dark olive green here and the olive green here. That's for Steve. So this document is basically ready. And I took 5 minutes to explain that, but I could have done this in probably 20 seconds. We've got 2 date fields, 2 signature fields, and I could have customized these if I wanted to, the date, by clicking on it. The properties come up and, you can pick the type of date. You can play with this all you need for consistency, but this is the kind of thing that templates do, is configure all the customization that you might need so the document's very consistent from a color standpoint, font standpoint, alignment standpoint. But in this case, in the interest of time, we're just using the default values for signature and date on both of these. So now that this is set up, all that remains to be done is to sign it down here, sign, then sign, send rather. When I send that, since this whole process is coordinated via an email engine that handles the workflow, I'm going to get an email from Adobe Sign that notifies me that I have a document to send. When I'm done with it, Steve will. So let's follow the process. I'm going to hit sign, then send. And it's on its way to the first recipient. Now, because I'm in Adobe Sign at the moment, it actually is showing me the document and I can sign it here, which I will do. But if I was not in Adobe Sign, I would go to my email and I would see a notification that says, click here to sign the agreement between the Colorado Department of Transportation and Tom Bovee, and it would take me right here. The reason I didn't have to go to my email is because I was already in Adobe Sign. So for someone that's never used Adobe Sign, this is very simple. By never used it, I mean being a recipient or a signer. Like if you were a contractor, you didn't have a clue what this was. You didn't have an agreement, or not an agreement, but an account with Adobe Sign, you'd get an email that says, you've been asked to sign this document, click here to sign it, and you'd be brought right here, even without the software. So when I hit start, it's asking me for a signature. There's the date field. It's already been filled in. And when I click this, since my signature, my option, there's several options. Steve will show that when he signs it. But since my signature's already been selected, I could have done it several different ways. Mine will just fill in. Watch when I click on it. There's my signature. And then the next thing, since I'm done and don't have anywhere else to sign, I got this notice down here that said click here to sign. That really means click here to complete my signature on this document. So when I sign that, the document is on its way now to Steve for signature. And here's one of the notifications of what it looks like when you get them in your email. It's just telling me I've signed the document. It's basically on its way. So Steve, if you want to take over and show your email where that email message is, go for it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for initiating that. I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen share. Second here. The catching. All right. So the signer will receive the following email. And I just want to remind you all that for somebody to sign or approve a document, they do not need access to any software. They don't need to download Acrobat Pro or any plugins, just like Tom mentioned below. you'll simply receive an email. And again, I could do this directly on my desktop. I could also do this directly on my mobile device if I would prefer to use that. And again, you'll receive an email. It looks exactly the same, whether this is on your desktop, which is what you see here on the left. That's my Microsoft Outlook. And then on the right, it's on my mobile device. So if you do have an Adobe Sign account, which I happen to have one, you have yet another option, which is logging into Adobe Sign. And on the right, you'll see a section that says waiting for me. And so I could see here the Amazon receipt that Tom sent me for sign and approve. So I could also access it that way. But again, a license or an Adobe Sign account is not required. So for anyone else, you could simply open up the email you receive, very straightforward instructions. You'll click on the link. So I'm going to open this link up in my browser. And it's going to render the document that Tom created for me. Notice that I'm not able to fill out and sign anywhere I want. I could only fill out and sign the areas that Tom explicitly assigned to me, which is this signature block. Now, I've signed millions of times, so it remembers my signature. The very first time you sign, you can have these 4 options to apply your signature. So option number 1 is you could type it out. Option number 2 is you could draw your signature. Option number 3 is you can upload an image to use it as your signature. And option number 4 allows you to send yourself a text message and use that as your signature. So I'll just go ahead and show you that very briefly here by pulling up my mobile device. And go. Like that. All right, we may have to skip that. It's not allowing me to share my mobile device any longer. So all this would do is send you a simple text message to your mobile device and allow you to use your mobile device as a signature pad. Now, for those of you that do have an Adobe Sign account, again, you get an additional option, which is you can go into your Adobe Sign account, and under your name, you could click on your profile, or you could go to personal preferences, and you'll see this section labeled My Signature. So this is where you can create your signature, and this signature will be used anytime that you need to sign a document. So again, several different ways to capture your signature. And now I'll go ahead and just use my typed signature. I'll apply it. And now I could go ahead and click on Done at the very bottom. And that's it. I've completed my signature. Back to you, Tom.
Okay, so you should see my screen again. Let me go to my inbox and just review some of what just happened. So this is where the Adobe Sign messages would actually, along the process, alert me. I would get an email that's saying, you saw the first one, that the document was sent for me for signature. I signed it. Then there would be one that basically said it's been sent to Steve for signature. And then finally, one that says he's signed it. And the last one is a notification to everyone that was on the email distribution. In this case, it was just Steve and I, but it could have been many others, could have been some CCs. You're notified that the document is complete, it's executed, and you can download a copy. So this is where, if you were a consultant, CDOT did not have, for instance, let's say an Adobe account, but you were one of the signers, you would be able to download a copy from the notification you got in your email. So let's go back to Adobe Sign. And let's go to Manage, because I want to show you something there. Okay, so notice at the moment there's none out waiting for me to be signed. There's none out for signature. these numbers did have a 1 in them when we first started. There's 18 signed. There was 17. So the 18th one must be this one. So this is the one that was just completed. And when I click on it, notice over here on the right, for that document that's highlighted, there's some options. One is to view it. And if you click on that, you can simply see the document. Oh, that's not the one. That's another document, not the one I was looking for. This is the one I'm looking for, this one. Now, that should look familiar. So this is the document placed back in my managed environment. Shows who signed it, when, and where. And if this were a record set, same thing, it would put it here. So let's go back and let's look at a couple of things that are interesting. And this is true of all the documents. If you wanted to share this document, let's say you didn't, in the original send setup, you forgot to give someone a CC and the document's done, but you'd still like to send them a CC. You can do that simply by clicking on share, cutting and pasting their email address in there. And if you want to put a message in here to go with it, you can, and it will literally send them a copy. The next tab, protection. This is another option, that's available. Here's another option, which is, the reminder, which you may or may not have set up to begin with. We set it up for a reminder. Here's the most important one in my view, right here, the one that's called history. So we're going to spend a moment on that. This is true of every document. So as you'll notice on the left, all of the actions that took place, right down to the date, the time, the minute, the second, the email address, everything of what was done. And at the end of it, it says completed, right? There was 2 signatures, and Steve signed it today at 1:35 p.m. So that's known as an audit trail. This is the kind of thing that will stand up in court. There's an audit report, which is very nice. It's the same thing. If you click on that, it just provides a real nice, probably 1-page PDF with this in a printable format that looks really nice. So every document gets the audit trail, and the sender, and that's the person preparing the document for signature, will have this audit page for every document in their managed environment. And that's a really handy feature, particularly in the case of contractors. Let's say we send a document out to the field, say a Form 105 that we want to use, and the contractor doesn't want to sign it, right, because he doesn't agree with us. But we want to really know that he actually saw it. We have some issues with that sometimes. So even if they don't sign it, the moment they open it up in their email, they can't say they didn't sign it because the audit trail will show that the document was opened, even if no action was taken. So this history tab, which is where the audit report is really important to know that it's there. A couple of other things while we navigate before we go to a record set, just so you know. Like it says, you can print this, you can enlarge it, you can create a PDF here. This is a bit deceptive. It says hide. That word used to say delete, but when you're playing, when you first have Adobe Sign, you'll end up with a whole bunch of different documents in here that are, demonstrations. You signed them, you sent them to your friend just to see if it would work, that kind of thing. But when you want to clean this area up, you can select a document, hit hide. I'm going to do it with this document. This is the one that we just sent. If I hit hide, it'll ask you again if you really want to hide it. And when you hit that, it will disappear. So it actually doesn't completely delete it. It takes administrative access, but if the document is hidden accidentally, it can be recovered by the privacy administrator. It's not something you'd want to do all the time, but you could recover one if you'd hidden the document.